Sophie Mokoena joins us in studio now, as you saw her in conversation there with the UAE. And Sophie, this is not just an ordinary conversation, because this is an important player, even though, especially when you look at the global politics and the global voice. Let's speak about the significance of this particular moment in the conversation.
When I spoke to the minister, he indicated that on many occasions they've attended the G20 Summit, because you'd recall that even President Trump a few months ago visited the Gulf region. It was Saudi Arabia, including the United Arab Emirates, because it is a strategic country. And that announcement yesterday in terms of investment on the continent and in South Africa, and him saying that they are hoping to continue to ensure that they increase trade volume with the African continent. And I think it is a strategic country, but there are issues as well. Other people are going to say that, particularly when you look at the Sudan question, the United Arab Emirates is being fingered. There are allegations that they have been supporting the other group. And therefore, when the UN boss yesterday spoke about these external forces on the continent that are fueling the conflict in areas such as the DRC and, of course, Sudan, that comes to mind. And I think it's something that the UAE will have to work hard on, because it doesn't paint a good picture in terms of what the country is all about.
Speaking about allegations, right, there's another country that's also finding some frosty relations in other parts of the continent. You spent some time with the president, and that is Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and he does speak about the issues of Ukraine, he speaks about Lebanon, but also speaks about how he's describing Russia as the unique problem, speaking to journalists earlier on.
I did ask him a question that President Ramaphosa said this is historic, and they are all saying that on the African continent. But there has been a problem here on the continent where you have a challenge of conflict. I made an example of Sudan, that those people who have been in Sudan, who are engaging the Sudanese, are saying that the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, it's bigger than the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But how many times you hear in the news or hear leaders talk about that crisis in Sudan? Very few. Yes, he said they supported women in Sudan, but the reality is there's no pressure as it relates to international community to do something about the Sudan question. And I think it's an indictment on leadership. And the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, spoke about at this juncture where there are challenges globally, lack of leadership. So I think it is a challenging one, and the countries such as France, also in the Sahel region, those three countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, saying that you've done so much damage in our countries, and therefore we don't want you anymore. Something that France will have to deal with, and it's all the legacy of colonialism.
And Sophie, the legacy of colonialism is something that keeps coming up, especially when you talk about a continent like Africa, and with some saying that when you have a conversation about Africa, whatever conversation needs to understand the complexity and the context of where Africa comes from. Because you can't talk about the issues of Africa and forging ahead without looking at the issues of such as colonialism.
You can't, and that is why the African Union has adopted a resolution in terms of ensuring that the colonizers, they do pay reparation. It is a big campaign, and many African countries on many occasions when they are at big events globally, they do talk about that resolution of reparation. And we saw what happened between Germany and Namibia, where Germany is refusing to pay reparation as it relates to the killing of people in Namibia, the genocide there in Namibia some years ago. And it is a problem. And the president earlier indicated that you have Latin American countries here. We saw Jamaica. The Latin American countries are also saying many of us were removed from our respective countries, our forebears as slaves, and we want reparation. It's very difficult just to return the artifacts of the continent, what they took. You know, they want to bring them, you know, just for viewing, you know, and take them back to their respective countries. It is something that is so unjust when you talk about the just world. Even simple things like returning what you took on the continent, those that are in display. Why?
And why indeed, Sophie? Because, you know, unless there is that push, right, to acknowledge what happened, to return, and also at the same time to acknowledge the complexity of this issue and have the difficult conversations, it's not going to move forward this matter. And you're still going to have people who feel hard done by, to say that you may have G20 summits, you may have any other forum. As long as you're not having the difficult conversations that require people to look deeply, it's not helping.
I think the South-South has started to push for difficult conversations. When you look at the declaration as it relates to debt, we know that these countries are poor because mineral extraction on the continent led to this continent being very poor. And all the minerals were taken to Europe, to America, and today those countries are so developed, the Industrial Revolution. Now, the fourth Industrial Revolution, it can't be business as usual. You can't again come and take the rare earth minerals and develop yourself in relation to the current Industrial Revolution, the IT, artificial intelligence, using our minerals. You have to beneficiate here, you know. You send this raw material. When they come back to the continent, they are so expensive, very, very expensive. And therefore, I think the developing South and the African continent, in particular Sub-Sahara, if they can continue to be vocal and push and not be scared to make their views known and not be shortchanged by big countries, I think we can go somewhere. And you have a young population on the continent. The future, you know, you must think about the future of these young people who are out there, who are unemployed. And some of them have decided, you know, to use drugs to survive. I think this is a moment of reflection for the G20 countries to say, for us in the group, those who are developed, it can't be business as usual.
And it's getting desperate, right? It's a situation that's getting desperate and it's becoming urgent. We've spoken about Madagascar, where we've seen young people getting agitated. We've seen young people in Kenya at some point getting agitated. It speaks about the fact that the more you leave them out of the discussions, the more you're going to have this uprisings.
You are correct. The socio-economic conditions, if they are not good, people will resort to civil disobedience. You'll see those civil unrests. And therefore it is important for leaders to understand that you can't be a leader and live a luxurious life while your people are poor. It's something that it shouldn't happen. And if you do that, you must know that time will come where the nation will rise.